Start. Okay.
I start?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome everybody to this webinar. We are so proud that you are there and we are here because this is the first time that a group of ladies will talk about two subjects in sports that are not considered pretty good. That is pregnancy and that is menstrual period. My name is Carolina Garcia. I'm a sports sponsorship consultant, but mainly I'm a woman that works daily to get equity. You know, I have a phrase that is to nivelar la cancha, to level the field. Today, the field is in this way. What we have to do is to put in this level to get equity. We are part of G100 Sports Empowerment Wing that is led by globally Dr. Harbin Arora. And you know, we are a lot of women around the world. And one day I asked to dear Anush Gasparyan, who is here and who will join her in a while, what about if you include in your agenda sports? She is very engaged in women's rights. And she said, okay, let's do it. And that is why we are here. Remember this phrase, the player scores the goal, but the team is the one that wins. So you are part of this team and you are a main, essential, fundamental player to nivelar la cancha. So enjoy the webinar. Keep in touch with us. We need you. Ask us, send us emails. We are here so as to get equity. Let me pass the ball to dear Anush and get the equity, girls. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Carolina. Hello, everyone. On behalf of VICCI, India-Armenia Business Council, J100, I welcome you all and extend to each one of you my sincere gratitude for gracing this event with your presence. Before we start, I would like to thank, as Carolina mentioned, our very own Dr. Harbin Arora Ray for bringing us all together and for the spirit of sisterhood that makes us stronger and united. I'm glad to Carolina for her initiative to pick up this much important discussion and point out issues that women face in sports. On this positive note, we start the discussion by requesting Dr. Aarushi Batra to reflect on the importance of our today's event. Dear Dr. Aarushi, please proceed. And I don't have the ball, but catching it from Carolina, giving it to you. Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anush. Thank you, Miss Carolina. So first of all, I would like to congratulate WICCI and G100 Sports Empowerment Wing for organizing this webinar on such an interesting yet avoided topic, that is menstruation and pregnancy in sports. Now, when we talk about these two topics, these are two issues which are very familiar, very aligned to sports, yet not discussed, right? And they are associated to a very interesting concept of gender parity. What is gender parity or what is gender equality? I'll briefly discuss about that. And that is a concept which has been in our history from recorded times. Okay, it has been a concept between us in our society from a beginning of the society. And since time immemorial, women have faced this discrimination. They have suffered injustice, whether be it relationships, be it career, be it education, or even athletic opportunities. So not surprisingly, when we talk about sports, we see that careers of most passionate people, the most talented people in terms of sports persons, that also is a issue which we can see are raised about in sports. Now, sports by and large all over the world, and I am sure all of you will agree with me over here, that they are not taken very seriously. It is treated merely as a recreational activity. And most of the parents, and when I speak that, I can definitely speak for Indian parents, that they look at sports as a distraction to academics. So therefore, it is hardly taken up as a career. So only a section of people in our country or world over, they pursue it as a career. And especially when we talk about women, they only form a minuscule of that. Now, clearly in a world when we say that education of girls is not taken seriously, we cannot expect that kind of sincerity towards sports. And now let me talk about the various reasons why sports as a career is not encouraged. So the reason is, number one, if you talk about that, the career of a sports person is very small. Okay, let's say about 35 to 40 at max, right? And after which, if they have performed well, even if they have performed well, they are left to fend for themselves. They have to indulge in other activities for their livelihood. Then comes the case when we talk about sports women in particular. There are certain sports which are lucrative. For instance, cricket, lawn tennis, and golf. Women participating in these sports, they can generate revenue. And also when they reach the top level, not everyone will get it. Then when we talk about the bagging of revenue or bagging, generating revenue through endorsements or advertisements, not everyone gets it. So only if you fit in the criteria of that, or if you fill in that beauty standards of the society, you will get the advertisements only then. Right. So job prospects for professional sports women are very limited. So these are some of the factors which I do feel that limit the participation of women in sports. Similar is, we have the two concepts of pregnancy and menstruation, which I personally feel they are the factors which are, impeding the participation of women in sports. And they are together clubbed under the biological factor category. Right. Now, periods or menstruation, they are painful, yet they are very powerful. So even though we have made considerable progress in the discussion of menstruation today, yet there are many misconceptions which have been attached to it. So one thing we can say is, all of you will agree over here, that menstrual cycle of every woman is unique, and even a slight change, if you make it in the body, it can impact, it can impact her in a, most atrocious way. Okay, it can make a huge impact on her. And when we talk about sports women, when we talk about female athletes, it becomes a bigger issue because it has the potential to impact her sports performance, for which she has been preparing for years altogether. So recently, last year somewhere, there was a survey which was done by BBC on the elite British sportswomen, wherein 60% of the respondents did actually agree that they had to miss the competition and the trainings because of their periods. Okay, so imagine missing preparing for years for a competition and then altogether missing it because of it. So that is just one aspect of it. Apart from it, definitely the pain, the inconvenience, the lack of sanitary bins, the cramps, wearing the same tampons and the pads for hours make it problematic for female athletes, right? So these are some of the horrifying experiences which are shared by the female athletes. Now, these problems are amplified when we talk about married sports persons, because they have to balance between the personal life as well as their professional life. So, but when we talk about the stories of women taking break for pregnancy and then coming back after the maternity leave, they are not unknown. So we know there are a lot of inspirational stories. Serena Williams, former world #1 tennis star, She has 23 Grand Slam titles to her kitty. She made a Wimbledon final within a year after giving birth to her daughter. Similarly, we have Sania Mirza, Indian tennis star. She also, again, after 2 years of the birth of a son, she was back. Similarly, there is another amazing story of Mary Kom, Indian boxer, who came after, delivering a baby after a particular time period. So again, it depends on the potential, whether the person is willing, whether she is actually, it all depends on the love for the game and what can society do for her, right? So, since long we have this nurture nature debate on women among many scholars, and it is due to the childbearing capabilities. Women have been often seen as this weaker sex. However, all these examples of Serena Williams, of Sania Mirza, of Mary Kim, and many other probably which I have missed, these clearly demonstrate that it is, it all depends on the sportswoman's mind, that whether her goal is set on, on the thing, whether she wants to go back to the field. So it is the responsibility of the society to stop discriminating against her on these factors. Like Carolina said, do not see pregnancy as a disease and provide her with commensurate opportunities so that she can enhance her performance. So with this background in mind, let's discuss this topic today. Let's start with the main discussion. And without waiting further, let me first give you a brief overview of our panelists and their topics today. So we have with us Dr. Anush Gasparyan from Armenia. She is the founder of Working Women's Right Training Center, and she will be focusing on the problems of women's inclusiveness in public sector. After Anush, I will be discussing on the impact of sanitation on women's participation in sports. I'm an assistant professor of law in India and a sports law enthusiast. Moving next, we will have Alejandra Zalazar from Argentina, who is a psychologist and a professor at the Vincent Lopez Technical School. She will be talking on menstrual management in sports and will be discussing about the new paradigm about menstruation along with the examples in planning training sessions. Next, we will have Ms. Mapulane from Lesotho, who is the founder and president of Motsio FC. She will be speaking on the importance of communication and education on menstruation and pregnancy. And last but definitely not the least, we have Ms. Yolanda Sosa from Mexico, president of the Pro Women and Sports Foundation and also a mental health analyst. She will be discussing on the impact of these two core issues of menstruation and pregnancy on the mental health of female athletes. I would like to thank each one of you for your valuable time and contribution to this webinar. Now we will start with the main discussion. So I would like to call upon and welcome Dr. Anush Gasparyan.
Thank you, dear Aarushi. Thanks a lot for your beautiful introduction of the importance of our today's gathering and each and every our speakers. Thank you very much. Well, to start, hi again to everyone. I'm Anush, as already mentioned, founder of Working Women's Rights Training Center, also president of VICCI in the Armenia Business Council and chairperson of J100 Armenia Anti-Domestic Abuse Wing. Well, I'm not with the sports background, but as soon as I heard from Carolina that there is an issue, menstruation and pregnancy in sports that women face, can we conduct a webinar and discussion and basically can we raise awareness on this topic? I didn't even think of a second, but agreeing with that, though I'm not with the backgrounds of these sports. Why? Because we all women have one thing in common. Doesn't matter at what corner of the world. Those are the issues that we similarly face at the public sector. So today I'm going to talk about very briefly the core of unjust warfare biological differences. Our experts will be highlighting the issues in the sports, what exactly women face, what are the means to tackle those issues, However, there is one important thing that I want to raise all of yours attention. That is the core that these issues been built up. So before we focus on today's webinar's main discussion, which is menstruation and pregnancy in sports, I want to make you all familiar with the problem of women's inclusiveness. The reason that today we are discussing this topic, menstruation and pregnancy in sports, indicates only one thing, the issue of inclusiveness. Why? Because menstruation and pregnancy are as natural as, for example, breathing, eating, or drinking, right? There is only one difference about it. It is specific to woman's body. In sports or in any other sector of public life, the fulfillment of a common requirement of human's body, as drinking, eating, and breathing, are considered, and accommodation of humans with those body requirements is provided for enabling their productivity, right? Now, why menstruation and pregnancy are seen as an abnormal inhuman phenomenon? Because the public place initially was not designed for meeting women's requirements, and women with their human differences are not included. The reason behind disadvantaged situation of women has long and deep history. Despite the differences among the countries of the world, the behavior towards women is so common due to the woman's biology and traditional obligations. Hence, the correlation of the private with the public and prioritization of a private as woman's main domain is building up different forms of evils, like discrimination, sexual harassment, etc. at her public place. That public place can be the sports place, workplace, education place, etc. And those evils are rising in order to push her back to her private domain. The violation towards women's public participation may be dated back to Stone Age. To keep it simple, when there was a rule of jungle and basic instinct was survival of the strongest, as the strongest could hunt and feed. Hence, the physical structure of a female was different from male. Specifically, when she used to be pregnant, they were much more vulnerable. The history says that evolution took place, times changed together with the human body, means to survival also changed. To eat was not necessarily to hunt, agricultural activities came to place. The tools of work changed by helping physically weak also be as capable as the strongest. Despite the changes up to date, the behavior towards women did not change. The behavior towards women's biological differences since Stone Age up to date is quite same, and this behavior affects her public participation. However, important to note that women's participation in the public sphere has another highlight in the history, and it's recent that large number of women have been entering to the public sphere, and this concept has arisen with it emerged with the concept of need of time. During the Industrial Revolution, the social situation changed throughout the world. Thanks to the need of time, women took over the occupations traditionally considered as occupations of men. That was a chance they were able to show to the world their ability of being as capable as men when performing activities considered as activities of men since centuries. However, with men returning to their positions, women were pushed back to private domain with the same mode of discrimination and harassment. Since then, women divided into three categories. One category remained and still are remaining in the public sector with such hostile environment. Some moved back to another category second, moved back to the house sector. And there is also a third category who stood up for their right to be included. And they raise, and still like us today, raising their voice towards issues women face at the different sectors of public sphere. Ever since, a lot has been done for equal participation into the public life. However, Despite the international and national legal protections, judicial pronouncements, policies, and programs directed to the welfare of women in public sector, women of the world still face challenges at the public sphere. Therefore, much more is needed to be done. Above everything, it is important to raise women issues with the focus that her inclusiveness is not considered. We should remember this fact that we are not considered in the public sphere. We always try to fit in somewhere which is not designed as per our requirements. As initially, as I mentioned already, the public sector was designed from the perspective and biological requirements of the men. A lot to talk about this topic, but as I promised, I should keep it very brief. Hence, to conclude, I want to infect you with the spirit of world is yours, go and win it, girl. Do it now. We design the public sector, we design the public sector as per our body requirement with the spirit of sisterhood. We got your back. Go there and win the world. And thank you all of you for being here today. And this is one step towards the mission. Thanks everyone. Next, I would like to call Dr. Aarushi Batra to talk on impact of sanitation on women's participation in sports.
Hey
Dr.
again. All right. So I'm Aarushi Batra, already introduced myself. So the topic on which I'll be deliberating is impact of sanitation in women's participation in sports. So we all know there was a time in history where sports was largely a male bastion. And in fact, even today, we see there are sports which are largely associated with men. It was only recently that women started participating in sports. And only up till last 40, 50 years, we have seen a sudden rise in the participation in sports, and that too in the West, which we can say. Now, broadly, there are three broad factors, which are responsible for limiting the participation of females in sports. So these three factors are economic factors, socio-cultural factors, and the biological factors. When we talk about economic factors, we have the gender pay gap. I'm sure you are aware about the gender pay gap, which is the difference in prize money or the difference in the match fee, which is paid to female players and the male players. There's a huge pay gap. I'm not talking about the Grand Slams, they pay equally. And that was also after the recent efforts or the efforts of, Billie Jean King. But there are still many countries and many sports wherein female players are not paid at par with male players. So that is one thing which discourages females to take up sports. Second, we have the socio-cultural factors. Under this, we have something called when women usually do not get family support. So let's say if I'm not encouraged by my family to take up sports, I won't be taking sports, right? I won't be going out, I won't be playing, especially not as a career. Then we have media attention. I'm sure again that media coverage which is given to men's sports and the media coverage which is given to female sports, we know what's the difference like, right? And finally, the representation which we see. How many females players who are there actually go up and become the coaches, right? So there's nothing to see as a role model. So when I want to take up sports as a young girl, I do not see any role model up there that I want to be that. Okay, so there is no representation of women in administrative bodies or management boards. So that is one thing which is there. So all these are the economic factors or maybe the socio-cultural factors. Then the third category which also happens to be the main theme of the webinar today, is the biological factors. That means the factors like the sexual harassment, which stops obviously the parents from sending their wards for playing. Then other factors like menstruation. Then factors like pregnancy. Women stop playing after they, become pregnant, right? Then we have factors like intersex participants, okay, who have conditions like hyperandrogenism. So these are certain issues which are biological in nature. And today's theme, like I said, surrounds around menstruation and pregnancy. Now, under this category, we have chosen impact of sanitation. How does it affect women's participation, or what role it plays in participation of sports, if at all? So right now, you will be surprised to know that there are 2.1 billion people in the world who are living without basic sanitation. And that means it's almost a quarter of the world, right? This situation becomes even more problematic when we talk about women. So there's a very popular acronym, which is WASH. That is water and water, sanitation, and hygiene. Okay, WASH, but it is popularly called as WASH. And it was given by a US agency. So safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene, they go hand in hand. And they are the three basic tenets of your sanitation. They are together referred to as WASH. Now, sanitation is important for any person. However, it is all the more important when we talk about women. Why do we say so? I'm sure there is this concept of sustainable development goals, which everyone here is aware of, SDGs, which we popularly call. So United Nations came up with this wonderful concept of SDGs, sustainable development goals, which are the set of 17 principles for improving the livelihood of people in this planet, and specifically set the target to do so by the year 2030. Now, there is goal number 6, which specifically talks about sanitation and access to water. So you can see the importance which is attached to sanitation and water by UN itself. Now, there was a recent study which was conducted by UN, in which that study was conducted on primary schools, basically, that what is the level of sanitation or the wash facilities which are available in these primary schools. And there was a shocking revelation that almost 1/3 of the primary schools lack the basic drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities, thereby making students, especially the girl students, and specifically the girls who are menstruating, making them drop their education. So I'm talking about menstruating girls because obviously they need washroom, access to sanitation, access to toilets more than anyone else, right? Specifically water and, water and soap. And so it ultimately leads to missing classes, right? Missing schools. So for girls, menstruation can mean ending their education simply if there is no sanitation or basic sanitation facilities are not there in their schools. So I also came across certain stories where there were studies conducted in a particular district, and it was found out that certain complaints were taken up that what are the conditions in your school? What is the basic wash facilities? Are there proper wash facilities in your school? Are the proper, are there hygiene conditions? What are the toilet facilities in your school? What about the drinking water? And, there were reports by girls. One girl made this revelation that she, she avoids drinking, or she never drinks water or any kind of liquid during those 8 hours of school, so that she doesn't have to urinate because her school does not have a decent place to squat or a toilet. Okay, so that's the amount of pain or thing which the poor girl has to undergo. Right. So what needs to be improved over here is the basic wash facilities. And that is all which we have to provide over here. So when we talk about the sanitation, what are we aiming at? What does it require? Why is it so difficult for us to provide it? It requires a toilet. It could include a pit toilet. It could include a flush toilet, anything. It includes a hand washing facility, right? Along with the soap and water, obviously, when we are talking about menstruating women. Then water resource, drying rack, and menstruation hygiene management training, specifically for girls. Now, menstruation hygiene management is a concept which was, for this first, let's understand what is menstruation hygiene management. Now, this concept was given by WHO and UNICEF together in 2012. And it was defined as women and girls, when they are using clean menstrual management techniques, when they are able to collect menstrual blood, and they are able to change in private whenever they feel it is necessary using soap and water. Whenever they have access to safe and convenient facilities, they can dispose of the menstrual management materials. This training is called menstrual management hygiene. That is, they can do so without any discomfort, without feeling shy, without any fear to do so, right? So we see the challenges which menstruating women feel are not just limited to lack of infrastructure, lack of supply. Some people or some countries actually, have other concerns when we talk about menstruation. For instance, if I talk about my country, there is, or my society, there is a taboo associated with menstruation, right? It's a taboo word. There are certain other discriminations associated with it. I cannot speak very loudly if I talk about my grandparents' situation, especially talk about the rural India, right? So this is because of the lack of information. It has led to unhygienic conditions. It has often led to, often has led, because of the this has often resulted into very certain menstrual practices which have created certain kind of negative attitude among people, right? And even shaming, even bullying, and in certain cases even violence. So women and girls who are experiencing shame for menstruation cycle, who are unaware about how to best take care for themselves during these periods, they face great challenge. And solving the sanitation crisis for women everywhere means changing the narrative about the menstruation itself. This can be done through this menstruation hygiene management training, which can be made available at school itself. Now, if the issue of menstruation hygiene management is so important, imagine how important it is going to be for sportswomen. Okay, when we talk about the sportswomen, so every woman knows her limitation, and she manages her schedule in such a way that she can rest during that time of the month. And I'm sure people are aware, and especially there's this concept of period leaves now. We get once in a month, and especially by big corporates, they offer this period leaves, okay, so that there are sufficient avenues to rest, right? But when we talk about sports women, this might not always be the case. The events for which she has been practicing, or she is preparing, or she's undergoing that training are, they are decided sometimes in months in advance, sometimes years in advance, right? So she cannot alter that day, or she cannot rest on that day just because she's having her period on that day, right? It will mean that she's letting go her all those years of practice. So this is the importance which sanitation, or probably menstruation, means for a sportswoman. It is much more severe for a sportswoman than any ordinary regular woman, right? So when we talk about issues related to sanitation from the point of view of sportswomen, we are not limiting
Voy a
ourselves.
tomar solo la leche.
We are not limiting ourselves to, we are not limiting ourselves just to access to sanitary napkins, that let's make ourselves available, let's make that poor sportswoman available some sanitary napkins or tampons, or let's make the sanitary bin available to her. Okay. It includes that we need to make herself available, we need to give her the access to toilet, we need to give her access to changing rooms. For those who don't know changing rooms are the places where, during the match or near the venues where the women or any player, be it male or the female players, they have to change, they get ready, they sit. Right. Now, the whole debate around the changing room is particularly interesting from the point of view of sportswomen, because for most of the sports, and the changing idea of changing room in most sports do not exist at all, especially for females. And there is also concept where it does. There are concept of shared changing rooms. For that, it would mean there's a shared changing room for males and females. So if there's a simultaneous match going on, probably for males and females, so for males, sometimes the females have to just leave altogether. And changing rooms are open spaces. There's no privacy, so anyone can walk over when you're changing. Right. So women usually do not prefer using these changing rooms. So sanitation does include that we need to change these changing rooms. We need to have a dedicated changing room, because this will also, have an impact, or this will also create an impact on the retention policy. It will make her, it will change the recruitment, process. I would like to, as a sportswoman, I would like to take part. I would like to take it as a career, that I know my sanitation will be taken care of. We have facilities of changing room during those days, right? So we need a change of perspective. So these will play, this will have a long way. These things will go a long way over there. Then what we have, other challenges which female athletes face are, when the doors do not have, they do not have locks. Then there are missing toilet papers. The sanitary bins are not there. Sanitary napkins are not adequately there. They have to take their own, and then if they're like, they have to, wear the same tampon, same, pad for same, for hours altogether. So it becomes difficult for them. So what, I had during this, while going through this, I collected some material. I was, I happened to got hold of some stories of real athletes, and I won't take names. I like to keep it anonymous. And they shared their anecdotes, and I thought it's worth sharing over there. So they shared their instances. So they say that when the sports, for instance, when the sports is not well funded, for instance, if my sport is not well funded, I do not have a proper toilet. That is one thing. So again, if my sport is lawn tennis, I will have facilities with me. If my sport is, well, let's say anything which is maybe gymnastics, just giving an example, maybe anything which is not there in every country, there might be even a toilet missing, right? That is the thing which is there. Then another athlete made the statement that when she was younger, there were people, since there are no locks on the door, so changing tampons was a nightmare, because obviously it was like people could anytime walk over. So these are the horrifying stories which athletes have, shared. Now, in the beginning, I spoke about the wash facilities, water, sanitation, and hygiene. Now, coming back to it, when we talk about the wash facilities, whether be it the female athletes, whether we say, officials or the spectators, wash facilities can only include, it includes your drinking water, it includes your clean toilets, it includes your hand washing stations. And some of the athletes said, obviously, they want, sanitary disposal bins and the sanitary napkins dispensers and showers, right? So these all conditions, it will create a very positive impact on the health and performance of the athlete. So these are justified, certain justified demands, which will overall help in, improving the health of that athlete. So clearly, to give optimum performance, to give proper performance on the field, what athletes require are they need to remain healthy. So access to toilets and giving them basic sanitation facility like hand wash or soap, that is a clear barrier against illness. So that we need to provide them so that they can give their best performance, right? So this is one thing. Then comes the question of physical safety. If we are giving them proper toilets, let's say near the venue, near the sports venue, it is important for their physical safety, because if let's say the female players are going and urinating somewhere around in the bushes or in open spaces, there's a whole lot of difficulty of it. Could be she could be attacked by her, sexually assaulted by anyone, any stranger or any male player or anyone. So there are safety concerns, right? And in many studies, similarly, sportswomen have reported when the toilet is not near the sporting venue, so they prefer not to go at all, right? So that is again a very problematic situation. Then comes the issue about comfort and convenience, that even from the point of view of spectators, people do need toilets at the venue, because obviously if I talk from the view of spectators, I would want to watch a match where there'll be a nearby toilet. Okay, so for anyone, be it an athlete, be it a spectator, sanitation is a must, right? And closer to the field, the better for the athlete. Now, this is an issue which we have addressed, and now that we have seen the whole sort of problems which are faced by the sportswomen, let's talk about the best practices which have been adopted worldwide, from which we can benefit and we can also adopt. So the first problem which we saw was there are no sanitary napkins, and there are no sanitary bins. So let's say the first thing which comes to my mind is, so for easy availability of sanitary napkins to sportswomen everywhere, one thing that can be done is low cost intervention or substitutes of sanitary napkin. So I'm not very sure for how many of you have watched this movie. It's a Hindi movie. There's a movie called Padman. Okay. So for all those who are not aware, it's a movie based on the life of social activist and entrepreneur A. Muruganathan. He is an inventor of the low-cost sanitary pad making machine, right? And he has made this machine, and he has rooted out, he has created awareness about traditional unhygienic practices around menstruation in rural India. He has made these machines which can manufacture pads for less than of a third commercial pads cost. So his mini machines have been established in 23 of the 28 Indian states, right? So what government can do is government could fund such types of research so that pads can be easily available worldwide at cheaper prices, right? So it can be easily, so the any sports facility or any sports stadiums or any sports any venue cannot say that since it's a sports which it's not cricket, or it's a a sport which is not very financially independent or lucrative, we cannot provide this kind of facility. Now second initiative is similar in nature, which is by Kenya. There is this Move the Goalpost, MTG, which was launched in 2016. This organization launched a project in partnership with Make a Pad. Okay, that's a social enterprise business. And the idea was again to train participants to make pads from locally reusable products, so that when local source materials will be used, the pad will be of cheaper price. It will be easily available, again ensuring easy availability to the people. The third study, the third practice which has gained popularity and which I found particularly very interesting and helping breaking the myths around menstruation is NAS Foundation. What this thing is, NAS Foundation is an NGO in India, and it's a very popular organization. This organization, along with the Goal Program Partner and the Young People Initiative, it has basically empowered the adolescent girls through the medium of sports. So, for instance, what they are doing, these NAS leaders are educating the girls, basically that they come out and talk about menstruation, and how they are doing that is very interesting. So they are doing it by engaging the girls into some kind of role play or activity. They are using cricket as a platform. So every week what they do, these girls, there are certain lessons which they take. So they play this game called bowling out myths. So they they dismantle the harmful myths which every person or every girl has around menstruation. How? So participants of this game write one or two whatever myths they have around menstruation. They write it in a glass bottle, they put it in that bottle, and they place that bottle in the cricket pitch, okay, as a wicket. And then one of the participant, just like they have to knock it over, and when the bottle is knocked over, that myth is read aloud and discussed, that this was the myth. So it has it has helped in breaking the silence on menstruation, and it also creates a fun kind of environment, and it has created a lot of positive impact, right? So to conclude, I can say that now that we have a fair understanding of the problems which women sports persons around the world are having, we should not lose sight of this. And we should take all those measures which, which can provide them with the health, which can actually facilitate, by which we can facilitate them with health care and hygiene. Now, taking cue from all these global best practices, what government can do is create an enabling environment for girls and women so that they can come forward and showcase their talent in sports and not be limited by the lack of things which are already there. So the best way to start is obviously by providing access to something as basic, as safe as the sanitized environment. With this, I would like to say thank you. So thank you to one and all.
Thank you, dear Aarushi. Thanks a lot. This was very insightful presentation, and I hope that the best practices you shared with us, the examples, will be definitely heard and implemented in one or another way. Thank you very much for your presentation. And before we proceed, I would request to all the participants, if you have questions, you can write us, and at the end you can address your question to any of the panel members, and we'll get back and we'll be having an open discussion as well. So next, I would request Alejandra Zalazar from Argentina to talk on menstrual management in sports. Thank you. Proceed, Alejandra, please.
Hi, thank you very much, Anush. I'm very glad to be here with such important speakers. And well, I would like to share my screen to do my presentation. Well, as you have presented me, I'm Alejandra Zalazar. I'm a psychologist, and also I'm one of the 200 female soccer coaches in Argentina. I would like to speak about menstrual management. First of all, we have to know that half of the population menstruates, and even today it remains being a taboo subject. When we talk about taboo, we are talking about prohibition of something strange based on prejudice. As a consequence, there is a lack of data, information, studies about long-term effects on the health of users of menstrual containment elements and the environmental impact of disposable waste. And the consequences of the lack of information are the following. Common symptoms among menstruating people are pathologized. There is absenteeism due to lack of access to menstrual containment products. States do not recognize menstrual management and therefore the factor of inequality that it produces, and stigmatization and discriminations of menstruating people is other of the consequences. Biological, normative, hegemonic narrative tries to make menstruating bodies invisible. And when visibilize them, like here, for example, the advertisements, we see that the containment elements show blue blood. I don't know the rest of you, but I think my blood is red, not blue. And also they show bloated and hypersensitive women. When I was a little girl here in Argentina, I knew about menstruation by a lab, yes? And the lab talks about some facts of menstruation, but it focuses basically in the fact that we have to be protected. I don't know protected of what, because as Anush and Dr. Anush and Dr. Aarushi spoke before me, this is a common fact, yes? Like breathe, like eat, like heart beating. So it's important to stop with the lack of information, to socialize data. Why? First of all, because not all people who menstruate identify themselves as women. Transgender men and intergender people also menstruate, and this is very important because that gives them the possibility to access to, for example, medicine or medical care. Here in Argentina, if you scan this QR code, you can download the law number 26,743, gender identity and its regulations by Article 11 by the Ministry of Health of the nation in 2012 establishes that public health systems, social works, and prepaid medicine companies have to guarantee the right to comprehensive health of trans people. So let's talk about menstrual health, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not mere lack of illness in all that is about menstrual cycle. If we talk about menstrual health, the important is that it allows access to information on body care during menstruation. It enables timely access to diagnosis, treatment, and care. It facilitates living in positive environment, and it raises awareness about the possibility of freely deciding whether to participate and how to do it. Let's talk about menstrual containment instead of feminine hygiene product, yes, or menstrual hygiene product, but containment. Why? Because paradigm has changed. Now it implements healthy practices with our body and sustainable with the planet. When I spoke some minutes before, the information I had when I was a little girl, the information was about products, but no, there were not studies about how these products impact long-term in our bodies. Only, as I have told you before, to be protected. When we talk about menstrual management, we talk about everything a menstruating person needs: bleeding containment elements, clean water, proper sanitary facilities, as Dr. Aarushi had told before, and also it's allowed to access to information to promote knowledge. Because when we promote knowledge, the myths are demolished, and it allows action that favor sport practice, contributing to improve the physical and emotional health of the athletes. During menstrual phase, for example, we know approximately 18 milligrams of iron can be lost due to bleeding. The reduction in hemoglobin causes the oxygen carrying capacity to decrease. The heart rate increases to 10 more beats per minute. Discomfort may occur due to gastric mobility. There is a greater lactate accumulation that would affect post-training improvement, and ligamentous length increases. But you know, everybody can do physical activity any time of the month. There is nothing that justifies not doing physical activity. Sorry. Let's see some examples. Here's an article about Chelsea. Chelsea is the first club to adapt training to menstrual cycle. Emma Hayes, together with her staff and with the help of Dr. Gumbels, had developed a program to measure the menstrual cycle and how it affects her players. In the aftermath of 2016 FA Cup final loss to Arsenal, Hayes came up with the idea. The coach realized that a large part of the blue squad was in full menstruation, and she considered it interesting to measure its effects. The coach decided to gauge the impact of the period on her players, and she developed an individualized training program regarding the factor and its consequences. Emma Hayes, along with Eva Boots, her assistant, urged the players to download an application developed by Dr. Gumbels, who also collaborated, for the athletes to keep daily record on their cycle. Thus, once the squad agreed, the coach asked the players for access to this data to be able to adjust the training sessions according to the moment of the period in which each soccer player is and how menstruation affects each one of them. Since that, although there are some symptoms considered generic, not all women have the same experience. So see how important is to talk about menstruation and how important is to be visibilized it in training sports. Let's see another article about this topic. The consideration of the menstrual cycle in women's football also implies knowing if the players are more susceptible to injury at certain times. For elite clubs, this is the key. The loss of an athlete means a huge loss. A recent study published in Frontiers in Sport and Active Living looked at 156 injuries to female professional soccer players over 4 years, and it related the moment of occurrence of them with the phase of the menstrual cycle in which the athletes were. The results were compelling. Players are twice likely to injure the tendon when they go through the days immediately following ovulation. This could be said approximately between days 11 and 14. In addition, the researchers also found that the premenstrual phase is a risk, days 25 to 28, although to a lesser extent. The increased pre-ovulatory risk is attributed to the action of estrogens. These hormones enhance the performance of the players, but they also increase the elasticity of the tendons and contribute to the overload that women can carry out, feeling in a position to train more. So, another, as you told before, pregnancy was considered an illness. Now we know during this phase, women can do physical activity. Why? Because it reduces the risk of hypertension, gestational diabetes, dyspnea, and preeclampsia. Shorter and less problematic childbirths are observed and produces benefit for the unborn person, such as improving the functional of the heart. The recommendations are the following: include postures, mobility, and aerobic training exercising programs in addition to pelvic strengthening. But there is a sine qua non condition in this while the woman is pregnant, is important the supervision of the doctor accompanying the pregnancy. But what I want to tell you, or what I want to speak about, is let's talk about menstruation, menstrual management with a gender perspective. Not only, as I told you before, not only women menstruate, also transgender people and well, non-binary people too. And that, and to socialize data allows all people to get information and to access to medical care, and also to menstruation contentment elements. Thank you very much. It was for me a pleasure. It is a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, dear Alejandra. This is very much important topic that you have raised here. Yes, I agree with you. It is the first step. We have to break the taboo and make everybody comfortable to talk about it, because so many problems can arise only just covering that topic and not discussing it. And also not only at the individual level, but at the global level, as also Aarushi as well discussed, Dr. Aarushi, and you also emphasized the fact that the sanitation and overall it can affect the sustainability of our planet. So it's natural. We should talk about it, we should discuss, and we should come together to give solutions. Thank you very much for giving your insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, dear. Next, I would request Mapulane Phohleli from the Kingdom of Lesotho to talk about the importance of communication and education on menstruation and pregnancy. Dear Mapulane, please proceed. Could you please start again? We can't hear you. You are mute.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. I am Mapulane Phohleli from the Kingdom of Lesotho. I am the founder and president of a non-profit making organization called Motseo FC, whose aim is to emancipate women from all walks of life and extend a helping hand to vulnerable and marginalized women and children in our communities using the power of sports. I am the president of Lesotho India Business Council as well on WICI, which is the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am the Lesotho chair on G100 under the sports empowerment with good leadership of our dear sister, Carolina. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful children, and I'm so happy to be here and share on the communication and education from my point of view. And for me to start, I would like you all to please allow me to share a little bit of my experience, which I call near-death experience. I believe it will help me pave a better understanding or even assist me in explaining the how and the why I believe communication and education plays a crucial part on today's subject. So I was 9 years old playing with my friends, and one of the girls decided to share her excitement about her panties collection. So everyone was fascinated because it had some, she was telling us about her beautiful panties with beautiful flowers on them. And we all got excited with the conversation and started sharing on what colors we liked and the best colors and the designs of different cartoons on the panties and so on and so forth. So we all started being curious as to what others were wearing too, after she showed us her own panties. For some reason, before I could show off mine, I quickly and privately checked to see if the one that I was wearing on that particular day was my white panties with the 3 little teddy bears. So I checked privately, and then to my surprise, there was a strange additional drawing there as well. So it got me a little worried. I said, now what's that? Which one is this now? Then I excused myself to quickly go to the bathroom to check. And then as soon as I got to the bathroom, I was shocked. I got so shocked. I saw a very weird looking drawing on my underwear, and it was bloody. Clearly, I was bleeding, and I was shocked. Nobody has ever said anything to me about it. It was the first time. I didn't know what was going on. You can imagine how scared I was, and I quickly ran home. And then when I got home, honestly, I couldn't fathom what was going on. My mother was not there, and there was nobody to talk to, but it was a very difficult situation. Anyway, going fast forward, we had recently experienced death in the family of my grandfather passing away. And throughout his illness, he had a series of nosebleeds. And I thought, oh my God, this bleeding business is going to finish my family, because clearly now it looks like I'm the next one. So the only explanation to my bleeding would be that I have a wound inside, and this wound is going to make me bleed to death. I took a bath once, twice, and the bleeding was not going anywhere. I was so scared. I was traumatized, worried for my dear life. And I didn't know what to do. I started, a thought came to mind, and I decided, let me just write goodbye letters to all my dear family members. There I was, seated in my room, writing the goodbye letters, because clearly, why would I be bleeding if I am not dying? If I don't have a wound that I don't know what caused it? You will appreciate, ladies, that with all the speakers that have just spoken now, with all the information that has been given to us, it is important to educate our girl child as early as possible. Because if I had known early enough, I wouldn't be so scared. I wouldn't have thought I was dying. I am really thankful for this platform, because I've always wondered, where will I ever share this? I'd like to urge policymakers, everyone out there, that we should start the conversation early on at primary schooling years with our children, because we don't know when it will start. We should be, I feel we should be observant with our girl children to see as they develop into you know, when a child develops, it will be clear to see that she is growing. She's not the same as when she was still little, and so on and so forth. So I honestly think it is important that the communication is started as early as possible. This seminar brings a very important aspect, because there's vague education as well that is not clear, because as soon as it is noticed by the parent or whoever sees the child, they start thinking, okay, now it's time to stop playing with boys. It is never explained how to stop, or rather why it is important and the how. They just say stop playing, and it is still not clear to you. Playing, okay, so I shouldn't play, but the how part is never touched, and that is, in my view, a left out subject, which is extremely important, because girls need to be provided with education on menstrual health and reproduction sooner than later, to build their confidence, resilience, build their dignity, and eradicate harmful practices and negative stigma often surrounding menstruation. Girls and women need to be provided with relevant information, disadvantages and advantages that will help them make informed choices. Recently, the government of Lesotho, through the Ministry of Health, with support of development partners, have recently started a dialogue on menstrual health. And last month, in June, UNICEF convened the first menstrual forum on menstrual health, which is 100% awesome in my view. But the government alone cannot do it. I feel if parents and teachers from early as primary schooling years can be involved and educate girls as well as boys, it will help. I feel it will help a lot. Inadequate resources to manage periods impact negatively on education, sports, and as well as economy, as our previous speakers were explaining to us. And the situation perpetuates inequality between men and women in sports, as it exacerbates poverty and vulnerability among women and girls. Some girls miss 5 days of school, for example, on a monthly basis, which translates to 60 days in a year. This therefore has a negative impact on their education and their ability to make informed decisions about their sexual reproductive health as well. So female athletes experience a variety of physical and emotional symptoms as a result of their menstrual cycle, which may negatively affect their health, well-being, and athletic performance as well. There has to be laws, ladies. There has to be laws to include biological process of women. In all sporting codes, both male and female should be given education to make it easier for them to support and to appreciate their sisters, and as a result, give them appropriate support regarding the matter. So I feel it is really of utmost importance that education and communication is done early on and to everyone, because with all the information that was shared today on the same subject under the same agenda, it would be total waste of time if communication won't be as explicit and done early enough. I thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Mapulane. Thanks for setting an example and honestly sharing your own story. That is very important, that we all, as I already all the time keep on saying, we all keep on talking about this much freely, bringing up our examples as women and examples of those who are around us. And just talk about it as any other topic because it's natural phenomena. As you mentioned, I'm really glad for your recommendations that education should be considered like from elementary school with parents. They should talk, the government should make such policies where they educate parents, male as well as female, fathers and mothers and grandfathers, grandmothers, every other family member to break that stereotypes and to become much more comfortable on accepting these natural phenomena and talking with their children who are to come to that phase in their life. And most importantly, it's not that in everybody's case, the menstruation is happening in a normal manners and in healthy way. Many people, as already our speakers said, that it's very individual. Everybody has their own way of experiencing the menstruation. As you shared your example, I just recalled some story. It happened, I've been in hospital and at that very day in emergency from some remote village of India, parents brought their daughter. She was in 10th, she was 10 years old. They brought her to the emergency room by saying that she's bleeding already non-stop. She's bleeding already 2-3 months. And we don't know what is wrong with her. Everybody were terrified. They were thinking maybe she has some tumor, maybe she's already in a critical condition. And apart from the fact that she was non-stop menstruating, they never addressed to the doctor, but only when she is already about to faint because her iron levels dropped and everything. And parents did not pay attention to the fact that this is a problem. We should first of all to go to hospital and to solve at the very first week when it got longer than 1 week. And then luckily, by the end, it can turn out to be hormone imbalance. They just prescribed some tablets and they said that it will regulate on its own. So in teenage, it happens. So what my point is that this is really very important to educate, first of all, parents and of course, school teachers and overall society to be much free about this topic. Thanks, dear. Thank you very much. Next, I would request Yolanda Sosa from Mexico to talk on the topic of the impact of menstruation and pregnancy on the mental health of a female athletes. You proceed, Yolanda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anush, here today, an honor. I really thank my fellow sisters in sports who have been talking about the dimensions, the history, the economics, equity that impact all of us in not only in sports, but also in life, especially when my fellow colleague, Anush, just have been highlighting the politics that are involved in the theme that we are addressing today. Of course, how our bodies as females in the world require so much attention and support from all of us. And how Aarushi also talk about the sanitation, the participation in sports, and also the dignity, the comfort, the intimacy that we all need in the current arena. And also Alejandra, when she was talking about the equity regarding the individual support and mentioned important studies that we all need to know. And this takes us with Mapulane's amazing story, impactful story that highlights the importance of being informed, to be to come together. She mentioned a convention that is right now targeting the menstrual health. And this has been a taboo for centuries in regard to who are we as women and also as men, and all genders included, right? So I really thank you to Carolina Garcia for bringing us together today and for identifying one of the most needed topics and mysterious topic that has been present as part of our evolution and humanity, but also has been a taboo and sometimes considered a curse, even in many sectors in life. But in sports has been something that personally impacted me when I was an Olympic athlete. And at the time that I was in the national team in the 80s, early 80s and 90s, there was no information about it. There was such misguidance and also mistreatment of female athletes in regard to this, and overuse of the bodies in regard to this because of the impact it had in the sport. So I thank you all. Thank you, Anush, for introducing me. And I would really like to go right away to some of the highlights that we've been listening already to these amazing speakers today and women in this group. But also I would like to, point a little bit some of the impact in the mental health of the women around the world in this regard, and also inform all individuals, all human beings that are listening to us today in this unique and so valuable moment to be sharing with you this light in the path for having more support. That is we always work to make other people's better, right? Better in their lives. So I really like to start now to give some of that contribution. So thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen now. I have just few slides to support that I'm sharing with you today. And of course, it's fascinating to hear my fellow speakers because we all are so interconnected in our topics. And it's fascinating to see that in each part of the world. I salute you today from Mexico, but I currently live in the US and work from the US. I will just mention, because you already introduced me, that I'm currently the president of Pro Women, the Foundation for Pro Women Sports. And this has allowed me to be interconnected with these amazing human beings that are here today, and also to spread the word and do more for everybody out there in sports. So there is an important development that we had currently, and I'm so glad that you were talking about equity and equality from the very beginning today, and my colleagues were mentioning this. The recent Tokyo Olympics almost saw gender parity, with 49% of competing athletes being women, right? We had this experience for the first time in history because, of course, the agenda from the source, the core of the Olympics committee is to have this parity. But we are talking about equality and inclusion, about competing, but how about equity? Equity means we are looking at the specific needs of each individual human being and how we can adapt these needs and accommodate these needs. And that's the equity part that we really need to get involved and talk about. And having this topic of menstruation and pregnancy coming along is one of the most important ones that impact female athletes, but also the world in that regard. So we experienced in these Tokyo Olympics the show of some female athletes raising their hands and saying, I have a mental health situation right now. I just can't get into the being right now, or I just can't go into the court right now because I'm losing it. So we saw the impact of the pandemic also in this regard, but this is also intertwined with how we as females are going through lows and highs, sometimes comparing to male athletes higher, because we have hormonal changes, we have menstrual cycles that also impact our bodies and our health and our mental health. It's all intertwined. Mental And physical and emotional and biological is all interconnected in our systems. We are holistic human beings. We cannot separate these dimensions. And when we address this as a component, as a part of it, we can help more, like athletes more in this regard, but any human being as well. So what do we know now? We know that almost all athletes, 93% are reporting that menstrual cycles have an impact in their lives. The symptoms of it, the perceived heaviness of the menstrual bleeding, and 67% consider these symptoms impair their performances. Some of them have to, also take a break. Some of them are pushed to go forward without considerations of the physical impact, because as Alejandra just mentioned, there is also an impact in the physical health during those days with the muscle extension. It's proven right now that premenstrual and postmenstrual, there are certain moments that the body can suffer an injury if they have not these accommodations in their coaching follow-up of methodology of training. So we need to talk about that. And also the self-medicating alleviates symptoms. Some athletes get into very intricate paths when they are trying to do this. I want to mention that as a part of this history and the past, I was part of a national team where we had to, because of the sport we were doing, which was Taekwondo, we had to give a certain weight, right? So 3-4 days before having our menstrual cycle, we started gaining 2 kilos more because we were holding water in our bodies. So while they will do at that point without knowing the consequences, they will inject us to suspend, they will give us shots to suspend the cycle for months. And we were in the teenagehood days, some of my partners in the team were a little bit older, but it is not a mystery today that almost all of those female athletes in that national team that we were together, we all had some fertility issues and also menstrual issues in the aftermath. Because if you're suspending your menstrual cycle to not get that, right, you get that effect. We also know that some athletes have to use birth control pills to also manage the menstrual cycle in that way, and also impacts their life later, right? So there's a lot of intricate things that come along, and we need to also talk about the symptoms that come along and that need to be addressed and accounted by coaches, by programs, right, in the support we have, because they will impact even the performance. I have worked with coaches that said to me, Yolanda, my athlete was ready to go. I don't know what happened to her. And by talking to these athletes, they confine in you that I was going through my period. I was going through this and that. I felt so scared in this moment because I had to go in the water, or I had to give a kick, or I had to jump, and I don't want to have an accident or a moment of intimacy there, right? Reported. So it's all intertwined. We need to talk about this. We need to also inform coaches and programs. How can we support even in those days for the athletes? So as I said, muscle and tendon injuries occur during these times, and we need to accommodate those programs for supporting and preventing these injuries. And then the 4 general dimensions I want to talk is also based on these symptoms. We know there's cramping, there's pain, there's headaches and migraine, bloating, tenderness, flooding. But we also need to talk about the mental health impact. There are 6 very important symptoms that we need to identify. And also there are currently programs in place that can help, reduce the impact in the mental health in the moment, the imbalance, the dysregulation emotionally, which is reducing energy levels, fatigue, reduced motivation, anxiety and distraction, and also fluctuating emotions. We all women go through these cycles, right, through our lives. But when athletes, female athletes, have to enter this path, having these symptoms and also having to deliver or perform, it gets really stressful. And instead of having a healthy stress level, they go to a toxic stress level. So we're really, and the only way that we can find that we can support them through these periods is actually creating equity programs that, individualize attention to each athlete, because some athletes will not experience the same, levels than others, but talking about that, having the trust that other professionals in the team can help them go through that. And also that their fluctuating emotions and reduced motivation is part of that physiological and psychological effect. Is not something that the athlete cannot do, or a female cannot do, right? Or a woman is doing on purpose. It's like coming out of these taboos and looking at this perceived impact of menstruation on different aspects of our daily lives, and also include more positiveness, more information and supports that reduce that negativeness and neutral responses to these. So we are creating also an environment for all women out there to be supported through these processes. And there are methods, there are currently studies that I will invite you to look at. Alejandra and my other speakers, female speakers today, share with you. But I encourage you to keep looking at this. This is a fascinating topic. This is something that we really need to bring out there and talk about more, so women start feeling comfortable in their own skin, and also female athletes can feel comfortable to talk about that and get supported, and not be stereotyped or, stigmatized by it. And also, instead of self-medicating, getting more support, right? Because the self-medication comes on that shyness, that, not wanting to raise their hand, say, well, I have this situation with my menstruation, so I'm a weak person, right? Or I'm not as powerful as I should be. It's just getting this out there in a different way, reframing these concepts. And this fourth dimension that I want to talk about is that support, again, highlighting that available support and feeling comfortable in these discussions, as I mentioned before. And then I want to talk a little bit about the pregnancy. I know today we're short in time, and we also want to be, opening the door for more topics about that. This could be a whole seminar about that. But pregnancy, some of you at the beginning, I think my fellow Anush or Aarushi talk about Serena Williams, for example, right? Nobody knows that when she lost it in one match. Remember, I don't know if you watched when she was having an emotional outburst in public that was very highlighted by social media, right after she came back from her pregnancy and started competing again, and everybody was against, her emotional outburst, that her hormonal levels were too high, right? Her hormonal levels had an imbalance in that moment. Now, of course, you can be impacted by that, but also her performance was questioned when she's a champion, right? She has given us 100 million titles to follow, and she's such a role model in life, but also she was sharing behind the scenes that she never realized how important was to get support for coming back to compete again after pregnancy, and also knowing your body, right, because your body changes during pregnancy, right? And you are going to become a different athlete, but nobody was there to talk to her about that. She couldn't raise her hand and talk about that. She just swallowed all those emotions. She took it inside. And of course, if you are just, that, pot that is boiling, but it's not coming out with, emotional regulation and, co-regulation through some supports, psychological or, mental health supports, she, of course, had a very, very low moment in her career. And how are these are my questions for us to continue talking about, right? And I'm wrapping up right now, but what is the impact in the female's athlete performance after pregnancy? How they can come back and continue moving forward? How can we inform more about these processes, and also the program supporting athletes in this transitioning through motherhood? We know motherhood, some of us that are mothers, right? Or also we are raising children from other people, right? To we know it's so hard. It's so hard to do that. It's such a full-time job plus our jobs. But who supports also female athletes that have to perform and deliver and have the right mind and the concentration and the focus on what they need to go and win and invest it all their lives through these processes. And yes, you can do it. There are a lot of really successful stories, but we need to learn from these role models to continue spreading the work. So I want to encourage you, as I'm wrapping up, to look for these studies. These studies are currently providing the first in-depth insight into athletes' experiences of the menstrual cycle and perceived impact on training and competition. The highlight today is we now know that equity access of individual responses to menstrual issues emphasize that clinicians and supporting staff and coaches and programs and organizations can undertake this menstrual cycle profiling, monitor, continue this awareness to develop, like we are doing today, all united, to develop awareness, to have more openness and knowledge and understanding of the menstrual cycle. And of course, if we unite, we can do this together as we are doing today. So thank you for this for today. I'm so honored again, and I'm so grateful to that for this to happen, because I was one of those athletes that didn't have this knowledge, didn't have this support. And also I suffer a lot of consequence after that, but also we are warriors and we survive and we move forward. That's the resilience that we have. That's the beauty of our humanity. And now together today, we can come together and pass the baton to others and inform others in regard to this and bring more awareness and more supports for all athletes and all human beings in the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Yolanda. I really I'm so emotional right now after hearing your speech, because so accurately you pointed out all the challenges that in a real life woman in sports face, and you just came up with this motivation to come up with the solutions. And by just joining your spirit, I would love to say that though I'm not from the background of sports, and even I was thinking all the time, because we all are so different. The pregnancy of everybody is different. The menstruation is different. The child bearing post-child care is different, because everybody's child is different. So how, and in sports, we know that sometimes it's a team sport, sometimes. So how, when we demand so much that there should be an attention to women issues, but also it makes difficult the entire process. What kind of model should be there that, you know, to have individual approach to each and every person? And as you bring up, and Aarushi brought up some examples of the role models, not only in sports, but everywhere in the life. We have the woman's prime minister, woman minister, woman in higher position, but yet exceptions doesn't make it whole. There are only few who, yeah, sure, I'll just complete and first I'll give you the word, who just, you know, break all these barriers and reach there and set this role model. But I appreciate, I adore those people, but it is difficult even for them, while the journey of each one of them was so tough to reach to that level. So now all of us together, as I heard all of you, and I also can link and relate that we all are feeling and breathing the same. We should make one standard environment where every woman's experience is considered, and such model is developed, where there will be accommodated as per their requirements, but not fitting, as I said in the beginning, into this preset men environment, which was just designed by considering only men requirements, which is, for example, drinking, eating, or just breathing. Yes, we have to have a place where they recognize women's differences and build appropriate rules, appropriate measures for accommodating each and everyone. Thank you, all of you. Yes,
just a few words before you close the webinar, dear Anush. Thank you very much, all of you ladies, for your time. It is Sunday, it is holiday, and you are spending time of your life to spread the word. So let me thank you very much. Dear Anush, thank you very much for including sports in your agenda. We are very, very honored and very thankful. Please do not forget us, because women in sport, in and out the field, we need you, all of you ladies from economy, medicine, scientific, everywhere. So let me thank you again. Let me thank you all the people that were watching you and hearing you, because it is Sunday, it is holiday, and they are there. As I said before, the player scores the goal, but the team is the one that wins, and you are part of the team. So thank you very much. And we kick off today, but the game still goes on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, dear Carolina. Thanks to all of you for being with us today. Thanks to each speaker from different countries for coming together and for sharing their expertise with us. As I said in the beginning, glad to Carolina for bringing up this important topic and for initiating this event. Endlessly thanks to two very much important people, Rebecca and Alejandra, for their professionalism and support through the preparation of this event. Without their contribution, this event would not be possible. Thank you, everyone.
And take a picture, girls, that you are. Take a picture. Who will take a picture? Alejandra.
Bill.
You take the picture?
I already did.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone, and I hope today's event served to its purpose, and the certificates of the appreciation will be delivered to each one of you shortly. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much. Let's come for the picture together. Everybody turn on your cameras. I hope you will like the quality. I'm not sure. Thanks for being with us. We keep together and we make changes together. Bye, everyone.